Well, good afternoon. We're with Dr. Gary Green. Dr. Gary Green was a longtime serving president of Forsyth Technical Community College and is now working for the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. As well, I have Dr. Tom Tubon from Madison Community College in Madison, Wisconsin. Tom and I are both co-PIs of InnovATEBIO, and we're responsible for putting together the Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute serves as a way of promoting young people who aspire to leadership in the community college ranks and or the high school ranks to take a good program which is industry based in the sense that it's not an academic program so that they are able to progress in their career. So I just want to welcome you both to InnovATEBIO this afternoon.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Dr. Tubon, it's a pleasure to be with you today and to reconnect with some work that we have done together for many years now. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Dr. Green, we have a series of questions, and Tom and I will just alternate these questions.
Sure.
And what we're really trying to do here is reflect back from your long experience of having led people. And for younger people coming up that are seeking leadership. So just to give them an orientation, could you tell us a little bit about your background and presently what you do?
Sure. Well, from the beginning, I am a first generation college student and college graduate in my family. Not unlike so many of our community college students, and was from a family that really valued education, and I know that in part I ended up with my career choices because of the value that was placed on education in my family as I was growing up. I began as an English major. And due to the impact of a wonderful high school English teacher that I had for a couple of years in high school, really shaped my initial academic experience with college. Received my master's degree in English, and then thought I would teach in a community college. I got a job in a community college, and I thought, well, I'll teach for a couple of years, and then I'll go back and get a PhD and all that. And of course, that changed dramatically as I settled into teaching. Really enjoyed community college teaching, and I think there was a lot to be said for the diversity of the students that we had, the diversity of age, the diversity of economic capabilities, diversity of ethnicity and race, and just the wide range of people that you serve in community colleges appeal to me. And so I taught and then became involved in administration in the community colleges, serving in non-credit administration as coordinator of continuing education for a small college in Kentucky, Elizabethtown Community College, and then went on to be chief academic officer at another institution and the executive vice president, chief operating officer for community college in Alabama prior to coming to North Carolina, and then spending 17 years as president at Forsyth Tech Community College. Upon retirement, I was offered an opportunity to do some contractual support in workforce development strategy with the Institute for Regenerative Medicine and the Regenerative Medicine Development Organization. And that then turned into a broader role of a faculty appointment, and the role is Chief Workforce Development Officer with WFIRM and REMDU, the academic organization and the nonprofit organization supporting regenerative medicine development.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Sorry about that. Dr. Green, your accomplishments, experience, and wisdom are truly inspirational. I mean, I'm honored to be speaking with you, and definitely and greatly appreciated. In your career, you've hired numerous people as an administrator, What characteristics do you look for in a leader?
Well, I have hired people and promoted people from within. And I guess to start with, I have to say, I think that's a very important part of developing a leadership team, and developing leadership is to develop from within and bring new ideas from without. I start off looking at something that's somewhat hard to define, and that is the element of trust and trustworthiness, which has to do with the integrity of the candidate. It's not something you can easily gauge, but I think it's really important to get a read on that and to be thinking about that as a leader, as you're developing the relationship that starts at employment with someone. So I start with trust, even though knowing how hard that is sometimes to ascertain in a person that you don't really know. And then there's a foundation of subject matter or disciplinary expertise that really forms the basis for employment. Person has to exhibit competence in technical or disciplinary competence if you're hiring into a community college role or to any academic role, I think. So there's that foundation of competence in the field that's so important for a leader to be accepted and respected within the academic organization. So you have to try to be certain of that. And that's really important. And then another area is what I think of broadly as communications, but it's really kind of what is oftentimes referred to as the soft skills. I don't like that term particularly, but I don't know a better one to encapsulate it right now. But it's the broader communication skills. It's the ability to listen. It's the ability to communicate and work within a team. It's the ability as a leader to resolve conflict, to make sure that the unit that you're responsible for, whether it's a program and program faculty and staff, or it's the chair of a department, or ultimately is even the president of a college or wherever it is. It is the ability to bring people together and to solve problems and address issues that are really sometimes difficult to address. And then, particularly for higher leadership roles, more higher order skills, I guess, or higher order roles. I heard a presentation a few years ago from David Gergen, and for those of you maybe won't remember or didn't know David Gergen. David Gergen was a White House senior advisor for several presidents, going back to, I guess, President Reagan, but with President Reagan, President George H.W. Bush, President Clinton. I think he assisted with President Obama at one time. So bipartisan role. And I heard a presentation where he defined what were the abilities and skills that really made for excellent for success at the presidential level, way beyond my pay grade or our pay grade. But I think they really apply, and there are three sort of principles or three core skills that I've tried to impart with the C-level people that have worked with me. And those are, first, you need to be well organized. The ability to take on and organize work and assist people in organizing the work and being organized in your own work. The ability to be disciplined and to choose a limited number of not just tasks, but a limited number of areas to focus on, and remain like a laser focused on those. Gergen says that if you have 3 priorities, you can accomplish those. If you have 5, you can accomplish most of those and maybe those. If you have 7 or 8, you can't do it. So you have to be disciplined and you have to be focused. And ultimately, also, you have to be strategic. And I think that's a transition that you see in leadership as maybe younger leaders move into leaders of, or positions of greater responsibility and positions which require you to not just do work, but to support others who are doing work. And that is to be strategic about what you're doing. I oftentimes ask again, C-level people that were reporting to me when I was president, how much of your time is spent in strategic activities and how much of your time is spent in tactical activities, if you will, or the actual execution of plans and activities. And inevitably, there was never enough time put into the strategic part of our jobs. And I think it's important as you develop leadership skills that you take time and think about part of your role is to be reading, thinking, communicating, and interacting with those, thinking even outside your own areas and where you can learn from being outside the box of your role or even your discipline or your thinking, because there's a lot to be learned from other disciplines and other ways of approaching problem solving. So those are a few things that I like to consider, Tom. It is difficult to sometimes ascertain the match in hiring or promoting leaders, but having, I think, a clear sense of what you see is needed in the leader is a really good place to start.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. I don't know whether I should feel excited or overwhelmed by the scope of what lies ahead, especially in thinking about developing new leaders. And so, you know, you've mentioned trust and competency and communications in terms of building those soft skills. And at the C level, being well organized and disciplined and strategic in your approach. And so altogether, that outlines an incredible package in terms of thinking about the leadership and the emerging workforce that we hope folks in our Leadership Institute will embrace. So I appreciate your perspective. I've definitely, I'm nervous about moving forward because there's so many big expectations to fill, but I appreciate that you shared so many of your insights. I'm going to volley back over to Russ.
I do think that leadership is a developmental process, and it's important to work through different levels. You know, the first levels of leadership are oftentimes as a faculty member, perhaps taking on a project and leading that as a faculty member. And then you may take on some administrative responsibilities as responsible for in our world of community college, they're responsible for a program, perhaps a department, a broader unit as a dean or ultimately as a vice president. And this is true, the parallel, whether you're in a faculty academic side or if you're in student support side or if you're in businesses or non-credit training side, which there's parallels to that across the institution. And there's a leadership development process at each stage that rolls up ultimately to the abilities and the capabilities to successfully lead an institution, or ultimately perhaps even a group of institutions if you're at a state or larger level.
Thank you, Tom. That was Dr. Green. That was an amazing array of material that you put forward for the fellows that'll take this particular program.
Yeah,
and so thank you for putting that together so coherently. Um, Moving on to a different kind of question, but it does connect to the previous question that Tom gave you. And let me just put this in context. You're now working for the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. That's quite a leap from having been the president of a community college for 17 years. But maybe not so much. You created the biotech program and the biotech workforce program and the nanotech program at Foresight Tech. And the nanotech program, we know, is the one and only nanotechnology program at the community college level in North Carolina. The question is, from a strategy point of view, why those programs?
Well, I think in general, you just hit on it. It's about strategy, and it's about being strategic in your thinking about where programming might be, about carrying out your mission and your vision for the institution. It really begins by setting broad goals, defining the mission and a vision for the future, which is that broad role for where you want the institution to go. Then specific goals, scanning the environment, knowing the environment that you're operating in. And you mentioned the development that we undertook in biotechnology. Ultimately, then that led to nanotechnology and such. Part of that came from scanning the environment and where the opportunities were and where the needs were. I can recall a conversation with Dr. Richard Dean, who at that time was the president of Wake Forest Health Sciences, which included the medical center as well as the medical school at Wake Forest University. And in a time when in 2001, our community was undergoing really dramatic, not just dramatic, but traumatic economic change with the loss of legacy industries in apparel and textiles and furniture and tobacco, that diverse economy that we had here suddenly was being decimated. And Dr. Dean telling me that he had a tremendous need for technicians to support the medical research and development, that he felt very confident that the medical school could really grow and undertake, but they had to have the support of, need to have technical support for the work of doctors and scientists. That's what community colleges do, provide that technical support. So that helped to begin thinking about development of programs around particularly biotech. That scan of the environment, that thinking about where there might be opportunities in the environment to support communities and support students and provide not just jobs, but career opportunities. So that's part of it, being real sensitive to the environment. Another thing I think that's important is being prepared for the sort of serendipitous moment that may occur. In our work, we had an opportunity to interact with individuals and offices and work that ended up supporting our work. In some respects, Russ, you're sort of an example of that. You were open to a new opportunity. You've been an entrepreneur in the biotech area, and you were open to a new opportunity at the point where the college needed a leader in biotechnology for some of the grant supported work. As president, I had opportunity to be introduced by our local congressman at that time to Assistant Secretary of Labor, who just happened to have an interest right then in how the Department of Labor was going to address biotechnology in terms of workforce. And that was what I was interested in, we were interested in. So that those sort of serendipitous times when the stars align and when you have an opportunity to develop relationships, when you have those opportunities, take them. You never know where they may lead you and how they may help you. So I think that's important. And then also to take considered risk, and considered is the important word there. The willingness to take on risk. You mentioned the biotech program, the nanotechnology program. Nanotechnology program at Forsyth Tech Community College happened because we were listening to other advanced technology leaders in the process of developing biotech, and learned about these new technologies and this new science around nanoscience and nanotechnology that might create job opportunities as well. And we got community support for that because it was happening in our community. So we got some financial support for equipment, for example, from one of our large corporations. So again, that serendipitous moment. But let me also then mention another, because it's not always success. If you take considered risk, there is risk, and it's not always success. I could tell you about our high performance computing program, which individuals at the college won't know about because it's not there anymore. And we went into the area of high performance computing and combining individual computing units into connecting them in such a way that it was able to create almost supercomputer capability by linking all of this together. And this happened, and we developed a program in that not long before cloud computing really exploded. And what happened with cloud computing, the whole concept of cloud computing really replaced what we thought was going to be high performance computing of this connected computing power in a geographic region or a community or a company. And so the technology went a different direction. We took a considered risk, we made some investment, and it didn't pan out, but we had the opportunity to take some risk, and I think that's important to be able to if you're going to meet the needs of the future, you got to take some considered risk about where that future might be.
Well, thank you for that answer. A strategy, a good strategy is good if you have a need. And, as you said, some of it is serendipitous as well. And at the same time, it's risky. It's not always a sure thing. And I think, taking risk in an academic setting is a lot different than maybe taking risk in a corporate setting. I've been on both sides, and I just really think that our fellows will really appreciate the way you systematically put that across. So thank you for that. Tom, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Russ. I definitely get the sense that your collective wisdom and what you've stated about successes and strategies for approaching issues, definitely room to grow for myself and for many people who are interested in assuming future positions in leadership. So the Leadership Institute, as you know, Dr. Green, we're investing in building the next generation of leaders for biotech. And it becomes really important for us to consider what kind of qualities and characteristics these folks need to consider. And so the question I pose to you is, why is it important, in your opinion, for young people entering into leadership responsibilities? What is important for them to know as they take on these roles of increasing leadership?
Wow. How long do you have? Well, I think there are some things that maybe can help ease the way a little bit. Experience is the greatest teacher, I think, for leaders in some ways, but can maybe ease the way a little bit for younger leaders, perhaps who are assuming their first leadership roles or middle level leadership roles, or even senior leadership roles. One thing that comes to mind is that if leaders didn't need to deal with difficult situations and to make really difficult decisions sometimes among options that are not good, then someone else would have already done it. Otherwise, if the decisions weren't difficult, then someone would have already made that decision, or it would have been almost automatic. So, and as you take more responsibility and take on broader leadership roles, those problems become even more difficult because, again, they have gone through levels of management that where decisions get made. So the fact that decisions are difficult and options aren't good sometimes is not a reflection on the individuals or on the fact that you find them that way, but it's the nature of increasing levels of responsibility for those decisions, if you will. And I think sometimes it's important for leaders, young leaders, individuals who are taking on that responsibility early, is to just be aware of that it's that it does get harder. Another point that might be of value is that the most difficult leadership situations also include the greatest learning opportunity as a leader. You don't learn by the easy stuff or the stuff that goes well so much as you learn from the difficult situations that you find yourself confronting as a leader. And then you look back on 6 months, a year, or 10 years later and realize what you learned from having gone through sometimes very difficult leadership situations. And this can have to do with leading people, with organizational issues, with the management of constituencies, the broad constituencies, and educational institutions are notorious for the broad constituencies they have to address. Those real difficult situations is where the greatest opportunity for learning occurs. So take advantage of those to learn. And perhaps then the other thing that comes to mind is that it can be very rewarding. It can be the success of a project, just as the success of a student, the success of the people that you, as a leader, have responsibility for, whether it be your part-time faculty if you're leading them, or if your other faculty leadership group, or in other areas of an educational institution. Their success and your role in helping them achieve that success can be very rewarding. In my own situation as president, particularly after I had served in the role for a number of years, I became to take even greater pride in and interest in the development of the next generation of leaders. And so how you help people develop, whether it's in faculty roles, whether it's in administrative roles, clerical roles, whatever the role happens to be, how you help them develop in that role can be really rewarding. And in working through the problems that you have to address as a leader, that can be rewarding in terms of how you bring people through those problems for the betterment of the institution, and particularly in our institutions for our students.
So, Dr. Green, one of the things that I'm starting to see fairly clearly with our people who are coming through the Leadership Institute and some of our new folks in terms of leadership, many of the struggles that younger leaders are dealing with are with graduate school and the challenges that we face and just getting through. And sometimes it can feel like we're going head underwater. And I think that your advice that you just gave, just to keep on moving forward and all of these great great pointers for staying on task, I think are really, really a vision of what we really need to focus on, and especially for our folks who are coming through the Leadership Institute. There are more challenges ahead, is what I'm hearing, and it's how to deal with these and to do it in such a way that keep those hard decisions in mind, and that there are many more to come, and so be prepared. So I appreciate it. Appreciate all that you've said. I'm going to volley back over to Russ, and thank you for your answers to those questions.
Let me add one thing to that, Tom, if I might. You just remind me the importance of having mentors and peers that you can share the leadership experiences with, and the frustrations with, and the difficulties with sometimes. And sometimes that means having people outside your own organization, not the people who work for you or you work with most closely, but people who can give you an outside perspective on what you're dealing with. I personally have found that valuable over the years. I have had the opportunity to have individuals who I could call on the phone who are peers or in some ways mentors and say, I'm dealing with this. Have you ever had anything like this happen? And what did you do? And sometimes they can give you a perspective from outside the organization, from outside of your normal orbit of individuals to support you. And I think just as you characterize very well, all of the pressures and all of the difficulties that can seem to confront young leaders, having mentors and having peers to support you in that role is very important. And my suggestion is leaders be proactive in developing those relationships.
Tom, I think it's over to me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, Tom. Dr. Green, this has been a great discussion. And I guess this is kind of an open-ended question for you. I think you've addressed probably most of the points that you probably wanted to bring up, but it's an open question, which is there anything else that you would like to, go on record for giving advice for us at the Leadership Institute and the people that will be in the Leadership Institute?
Well, I might just add how important the Institute itself is in these activities of developing leadership for the future in biosciences and in community colleges. There's going to be continuing great career and job opportunities for students who have the right skills aligned with the needs of employers. And there's going to be great opportunities for community colleges to engage in that development. There's going to be great opportunities for communities to engage around economic development and providing the economic opportunities that community colleges can provide through programs like biotechnology and bioprocessing. If it's in regenerative medicine, whatever area it's in, there's going to be great opportunities develop and are developing in those for great careers that reach across our entire community, sometimes engaging those people who we haven't engaged as well as we can. So the opportunities that can occur and the leadership opportunities that those are going to develop are going to be great. And so I think the Institute And the cohort group that's going through the Institute will have great opportunities for the future.
Thank you very much. It's great. Tom, you want to close up?
Well, I think that we've just been blessed with some great advice and great insights. I appreciate all that you've shared with us, Dr. Green, for myself personally, as well as for participants in our Leadership Institute. I can't thank you enough for your time.
Great.
And I appreciate it. And I am absolutely blown away by the advice. I have a lot to think about and a lot to absorb, because I think that it's some incredible words of wisdom that you've shared with us today. Russ, are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share?
I think I have had the privilege to be associated with Dr. Green for 17, 18 years now, maybe longer, actually, maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think in a very interesting way, Tom, Dr. Green has probably been a mentor to me in many of the facets that he spoke to today. And that's one of the things that I think that makes him a pillar in our community. Just recently, a building at Foresight Tech was named after him, and very well deserved for that. But I think that represented much more than the naming of a building. It really spoke to all the attributes that Dr. Green portrays as a human being and as a leader. And so I think that, as you said, you used the word, I am blessed to have had this opportunity to interact with Dr. Green. I can say to you that, for me personally, I've had, I would say, maybe between 4 and 6 people who have a great influence on my life up until this point, and Dr. Green is certainly ranking right up there with them. And he was always, his door and office were always open to me to spend time just talking through some things that we had on our minds that we just wanted to be able to bring to fruition. And so I'm like you, I'm very blessed to have had this relationship with him. And I want to thank him for opening up to our fellows that will take the Institute. I think that it will be very rewarding for them. Thank you, Dr. Green.
Well, thank you. You're both very kind in your remarks, so thank you very much.